That was a very generous introduction. Made me sound like an engineer. And I'm not. I'm just a social scientist. Oh, sorry. I am today, right? So thank you. When I got invited for the talk, I had a co-author. The co-author was Mark Cole from Triveni, who is the engineer, and he was one of the authors of the interactivity standards paper. So I thought I was in very good company, and I was not fazed to be in front of engineers. And he said all I had to do was provide the eye candy, and he'll take care of the engineering. So I'm left only with you're left only with eye candy now. And for the engineering, you have to email Mark, and he'll get you posted on it. But given all the talks, it's been quite fascinating listening to the kinds of range of interests and ideas that are represented. But I thought maybe we'll use this time a little bit to explore some of the use cases, which is what we're doing in the Next Gen Innovation Lab. Our goal is to develop some applications for education. How can we use 3.0 for creating some interesting applications that can be deployed for educational outcomes? So it's a very simple talk, given the very sophisticated ones you've had. But I'll start with the basic, the simple diagram on how we could use 3.0 for building interactive applications. So you have the basic user agent, which could be any web browser. You have HTML, you have JavaScript, and cascading style sheets. And it pulls together data from two components. One is the receiver web server, that's HTTP. And then there is a WebSocket connection that it uses via broadband to pull in content. Essentially, so content comes from two areas, which is the classic hybrid of broadcasting and broadband. And that's the heart of the interactive effort, how we pull in content from both broadcasting and broadband and weave it together to create interesting, compelling content presentations. So I'm going to start with a very simple case. So if you look here, you can pull in content from broadcasting, which is just, say, an image that we have or a video of the Capitol building. And then the broadcaster app on tab lies on top of that, which is composited into a display. But the cool thing is just the simple interface feature, which is the question mark sign. If you click on it, it gives you a range of interesting content. That is a simple application, perhaps the simplest application we could build. Let me give you an example of this. And before we do that, I want to make a case here on why it's important to think about 3.0. I think among engineers, one of the things I've noticed is there's a lot of excitement. There is all kinds of potential that it offers. But I was talking with my daughter last night, and she asked me what I was doing. I said, well, actually, I'm not in Michigan, I'm in DC. And she asked me, what is 3.0? Oh, it's a hybrid of internet and broadcasting. For her, she's never received a broadcast signal in her life. She's in college. She does not know what a broadcast signal is. All she does is, and finally, after a long presentation, explanation of all the cool things you can do, to her, it's like, we can do that already. I get everything on the internet. What is so cool about this? How does this change? How is this a game changer? And I struggled with it. This is the same argument I struggled with when we wanted to start the lab and apply for the experimental license. The question on campus was, what is it that it can do that you can't already do on the internet from a user perspective? And a lot of explanations. One of the things I've come to learn is this one-to-many idea creates all kinds of interesting efficiencies which you don't get on the internet and so on. My point here is mainly that if a technology has to be accepted, we know every technology, we've gone through this, there has to be a selling of the use case. Somehow you need a killer app that really makes the technology attractive. And I think that requires some thought and thinking. So to make the use case, I'm going to use some of the public media values. The commercial broadcasters are focusing heavily on the business model, particularly tailored advertising or customized advertising as an important driver for why we should adopt 3.0. I'm going to emphasize maybe 2 or 3 other values that are important for any democratic society. One is access to underserved populations, including those without the internet. So if you think about folks who are out there in rural areas or even urban poor who don't have access to or have not turned on the internet, how do we reach these folks? Currently, with the broadcast signal, you can reach them, and that's all they get is broadcast content. Could we enrich this broadcast content with other data, other materials, collateral materials that you develop in a television station? So that will be one use case we're going to develop in the lab. The second one is rich media content for special populations. Special populations could be anything from children to senior citizens to people with disabilities, host of special populations we have. And then looking at how we could use this for social good outcomes, thinking about education, health, local news or journalism, civil society, arts and culture, and of course, emergency management and emergency communication. So those are some of the potential applications if you think about this as public media values, things that we care about in terms of common good. All right, so I'm going to go to this one.
Are you feeling curious?
Yeah! Are you guys having fun this morning?
Curious Crew started when Susie Elkins saw me present doing a keynote, and she had a brainstorm.
I saw him get an award, and the parents treated him like a rock star. They just loved that he was able to inspire a love for science in their children, and it was that inspired me to want to make a show with him.
What do you notice?
Gosh, this is crazy.
What do you notice?
Being on the show with Dr. Rob is really cool.
Oh, that was awesome! I have a reputation of doing a lot of hands-on investigations.
Oh, yes!
A lot of the experiments are really simple stuff you'd have lying around in your kitchen or in a craft room.
And it's using those materials to teach these different concepts.
Oh, that was good! Ultimately, we want the kids to work through science and engineering practices, what scientists actually do to be able to understand the concepts that we're exploring.
You do a science experiment to see what happens, meaning a quote-unquote failure is also a result too.
Whenever we have a project like this and things don't go well, what would we do? Redesign it, absolutely right.
Being on Curious Cure made me realize that science is all around us.
Science isn't boring, it's fun.
We get some fizzy action!
Rob's passion for science is contagious.
Dr. Rob has a lot of energy on set.
Energy in motion!
That energy, it transfers to the cast members.
Curious Crew has a roadshow element as well, and we'll go to schools, we'll go to fairs, we'll go to different events.
I didn't want it to just be 10 shows and we're done. I wanted the children that were involved with it to feel inspired and empowered to go out and talk about their love of science. And we've created curiosity guides, the lesson plan behind each of the investigations in the show. Parents and teachers can download them from the website and use them on their own.
This show really makes science and engineering accessible, and it helps children realize that if this is something they're passionate about, they could do this for a lifetime. We can have a lot of fun with pulleys, don't you guys think?
Yeah! At the end of every show, we point at the camera and say,
Stay curious!
And keep experimenting.
There's so many ways that science touches our lives, and if you don't stay curious, you could totally miss out on those.
Remember, my friends, stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
And keep experimenting.
And keep experimenting.
That's gonna go at the end.
So here is a program, right? The test case for us is to take the science program and to see how we could use all the potential tools that come at 3.0, or all the capabilities, and to see how we could use it to improve learning outcomes. If you noticed, one of the important things that Susie, our station director, mentioned was study guides as well as curricula that teachers could use or parents could use. So the first case that we're trying to develop is, along with the broadcast, can we use some of the bandwidth to push other ancillary content? Could be text files, could be images, it could be other content that will come in. And if you see, the color band down here is sort of the interface. Maybe there is a plus button and you click on it and it pops up. There is a flyout menu here. The menu gives you different kinds of content that go along with that program. Although we provide ancillary content on the internet, currently much of that is not used. Perhaps they don't make the transition from watching TV to going online and pulling the content down doesn't happen very much. But maybe if it comes right there through the device through which they're watching the program, perhaps there would be better use. So this is one simple application that we're trying. Again, in this context, what's important to note is you get rich media content without internet. Currently, that content would not be available for someone in the UP, which we call the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, which is remote. You may not have access to this content at all because they may not have access to the internet. But now, we've made content a little bit richer by providing it over the broadcast. Next, same idea, but now we are using a gateway device, and PPC stands for Preposition Content from the broadcast. So all this content gets stored on the gateway device, and in addition to real-life additional collateral materials, more than likely it's going to come through some kind of a gateway device where it's going to be stored or prepositioned. Now the same user experience happens, but the content does not have to be live. It could be from preposition content. Let me give you an example of this. This too has a lot of interesting applications.
Are you curious about careers in science? Hi, it's Jenilyn, and today I'm here with Dr. Chanel Foster. So where are we today?
You are in the Electrical Machines and Drives Lab at Michigan State University within the College of Engineering. I advise and supervise students. We work on motors and generators, so we design them, we develop control for them, we work on their reliability and manufacturability, so making them easy to manufacture. I like to think of engineers as problem solvers. So electrical engineering solves electrical problems. So we're talking electricity, electronics, electromagnetism for small and large systems. The most rewarding part is that I know that the complex problems that I'm solving actually impact society.
I had an amazing time meeting Dr. Foster today and learning all about electrical engineering. Explore our possibilities.
Here is another example, right? So here, again, you don't need, this use case also does not require internet, just over the broadcast. It gets cached in here, and then, as you all know, during the play, there is some kind of a trigger in the application, and the app triggers it and pulls this down. When would we use it? We could customize it. In this case, for example, if we know there is something, there's a cookie or something that tells us that the household is African American, for example, and you're trying to foster learning among science or STEM education among African American kids. Or it could be a woman. You want to showcase that importance of STEM and the importance of women engineers, for example. So that would be a classic example that we could do. So all that I've shown so far, we want to develop without using Wi-Fi or the internet, to show that it can reach distant populations and gives them rich content. The next one is now a household that has internet. Now all of a sudden the preposition content, there is an infinite amount of possibilities. You have preposition content from broadcasting, and you also have preposition content from the internet. And this is sort of the ultimate scenario that everyone's counting on to create very rich content with limitless possibilities. Next one is the companion device idea. So here, the last sort of our goal as part of the experimental license is to develop an app that can do all of this. Pull content from broadcasting, pull content from the internet, but also distribute content to companion devices. So let me give you a use case for companion device that we're currently using.
We're going to play a little game with these. My research and teaching really focuses on early maths, pre-kindergarten to grade 5. You're going to dump it over on your mat, and we're going to see how many of yours are red. One of the key things that we're trying to do in preschool is develop meaningful counting. I'll shake them and tip them out. I'm having these kids count beans today, and I asked them to shake them and tip them out and then count how many were red in the cup. This is an activity that allowed them to practice counting over and over and over again.
Ooh, I see red.
Many kids are not fluent counters.
1, 2.
By encouraging kids to touch each object as they count,
1, 2, 3.
we really enforce that one-to-one correspondence skill that is so central to meaningful counting. So how many were red?
3.
3. Good job. Thank you guys so much for counting with me today. It was so fun.
So Amy has a NSF grant that focuses on the importance of tactile input with math learning. And she has very good evidence that suggests that touch and feel makes a difference in terms of STEM education. So I have just a couple more slides before I wrap up. The point is to use multiple content from multiple sources. We talked about all of this. But there are other possibilities as well, such as interactive quizzes that we can develop through mobile devices, and offers the possibility of co-viewing with parents and parental interventions. One of the questions that have been asked is, what is the use of the companion device? If you really look at the research, when you're watching TV and using the companion device, rarely it is used to augment your viewing experience. It's usually a distraction. You're watching TV and using your iPhone or iPad mainly to talk with friends, unrelated activity. But if you go back and look at the previous clip, that is a way, that could be parental mediation. So the second screen or the companion device could pop up something to parents that say, hey, by the way, you can talk to your kids about math. Or if it's a program, Julia is a character, well-known character, she has autism on the show, and she's widely popular among parents with children who have autism. If you take that use case, for example, the second screen can pop up instructional materials or suggestions, tips to parents on how to intervene and talk with their children while they're watching the program. So co-viewing and parental mediation ideas. And finally, the idea is, different multiple streams of content through different devices for different households. So what's new? This, I think, is an important case to make. Much of everything we have discussed already already happens over the internet and many households with over-the-top television programming. And why should an audience member care? This, I think, is important to make. I don't have the answer to this, but I have some ideas. We could talk about that. But for a technology to catch on, there has to be a pull from the consumer. It can't be just push. Finally, I want to leave you with the content creation challenge. Much like text these days, as you know, text is highly chunked. Nobody reads a book anymore from beginning to end. People get snippets of information here and there. They skim and they pick up stuff. Learning is very non-linear. But here is a difference between text learning and the video experience. Text is generally believed to be a lean-forward experience, where you are leaning forward, using the mouse to make choices. You're an active processor. Video, on the other hand, is a lean-back mechanism. You're just vegging out, sitting and enjoying content. You make one or two choices. After that, it's for you to be entertained. You don't make those active choices. Now, we're turning video also into this non-linear, very highly interactive, user-driven medium. Would it have the same impact? Would consumers buy that idea? We're assuming that that could happen, but will it or will it not? It's difficult to say. But if we believe that video is going to be one of these things that are assembled on the fly through the gateway device, then content producers also have to think. Instead of thinking about producing content that's 15 minutes long, long clips of video, to be chunked into smaller clips that could be used to enhance viewing. So our vision is to work with collaborators to create applications. In the Next Gen Media Innovation Lab, we have an experimental license. Currently, we are broadcasting 1 or 2 streams, particularly PBS Kids. If you have any dongles, please, I'm willing to buy it from you today. We just can't, we're just using Triveni StreamScope to see that the broadcast is happening, but we don't have dongles to really test it out. But excited about it and glad for the opportunity. Thank you.